This is Infection, the survival podcast, recorded live on Tuesday, January 24th, 2017, episode 106. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Infection, the survival podcast. Infection is your source for the latest information on survival video games. We're bringing you the latest news, reviews, updates, and more each and every week. My name is Nick Craig. At Nicholas M. Craig is my Twitter. InfectionPodcast.com is the website. Thank you for tuning in live. We have a great show planned for you, and with a great show comes a great co-host. Hey, Brian, how are you?
It's the nicest thing you've said all day. Hey, if you want to find me at Boise Computer on Twitter, if you want to go check out my blog, it's Bite of Tech, BITE of tech.com. A lot of nerdy things on there that you can read, especially Linux related. If you want to go, as Nick said, check out our website, infectionpodcast.com. We have our Discord group on there. Usually have 20, 30 people in there that are ready to play a game. If you just put a message in there any time of the day, usually can get some people to play games. Also, we have our Steam group. So if you want notifications of when our broadcasts are about to start. So for instance, now you'd have a nice little notification pop up that says, hey, we're starting the show. When we do our Friday night game nights, which we'll talk about in just a few moments, you'll also get a notification for that if you want to come and play some video games on Friday nights with us. So I encourage you to do that because that way you get ingrained into our community because we have a really good group of people that play on a regular basis. So.
Yeah, and I've made that a real clear point here. We've got a really solid group of people that here with Infection. If nothing else, we've got if not for quality gaming content every week, we'd have a solid group of people. So, yeah, check out all those links on our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. All right.
So for our game of the week, do you want to announce that first? So we're going to be doing Rust. And if you don't have Rust, that's no excuse because you can go to the Humble Bundle right now. Do you want to check and see? We could check and see how many days are left on it, but you can still go to the Humble Bundle and get Rust for a very cheap price.
You got 6 days. You got a week.
So 6 more days. So when we're doing it, pretty much you have up until that point.
Okay, so walk people through this. So this is the home side of the Humble Bundle site. How do they get Rust?
So if you don't have it, you can go to the bottom and they have different price tiers. A lot of people get confused about this. This is different than the Humble Bundle monthly. These are separate bundles that you can get that give you these games. So if you pay over the average, which is $4.25, you'll get Rust, you'll get Shadowrun Hong Kong, and then Stronghold Crusaders 2, and then all the games that are under that. So like Evil Land 2, Else Heartbreak, and Victor Vran. Then if you want to pay, they usually have a premium game, which is a set amount. So if you look at the $10, you can get the Homeworld Remastered Collection.
Yep.
That will give you that game plus all the other ones that are below it. So you can pay any amount that you want, but if you pay below certain amounts, you won't get all of the games. And they'll let you know. They'll usually let you know when you go to pay. It's like if you click $5, it'll say, oh, you're, for this much more, you could unlock these other games.
Exactly.
So it's a great program. If you're looking to get Rust, I mean, you can get Rust right now for $4.25 plus another set of games along with it. So that's a really good price.
Yes, it's a great price. So the reason behind playing Rust this week is we have been patiently waiting, and it came out about 2 weeks ago, is the Rust Harbors, which are kind of the zone for noobs. There's a higher concentration of loot in a smaller area, so it makes new people like us getting into a game like Rust a little bit easier. So that'll be this Friday night. If you're interested, join us in our Discord channel. There's a link on infectionpodcast.com. It'll be 9 p.m. Eastern. 9 p.m. Eastern on our Discord. We'll be playing some Rust, and we look forward to having you there. All right, Brian.
All right. Well, so do we want to go and jump into the interview? I mean, we've got...
So we had the chance to sit down with Jens Erik. First of all, we've been talking about the game Conan Exiles for probably a couple months now. This is a new up-and-coming survival game in the early access genre, and we've been talking about it. We've been covering it, and a couple weeks ago, people reached out to us and said, "Hey, you should have Conan on the show." We reached out, and we had a chance to sit down with the PR lead behind Conan Exiles. So we're gonna roll the trailer for Conan, and then we will roll our interview, which is just about 40 minutes. So I hope you enjoy that, and we'll be in chat throughout the entirety of it. Here we go.
I walk in a land of desperation, a wasteland of the exiled and outcast, where the broken strive to build among the ruins, where the weak are crushed while the strong survive. And they call me Barbarian.
We have the opportunity to sit down with Jens Erik from Conan Exiles, a new game that we've been covering for a couple weeks now. Jens, thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. It's cool.
So there's this is kind of the year of not 2016, but 2015, 2016 was the year of early access survival games. Bring us up to date with kind of the backstory on Conan and what was the spark that you guys used to start an early access survival game when there's probably 100 other games in this genre at this point in time.
Well, the character of Conan the Barbarian has always been a survivor himself, like going from a very young barbarian in Cimmeria, and eventually transitioning into being a thief, a raver, a slayer, a pirate, and then eventually becoming a king. And we figured, hey, that's a really cool idea for a survival game. You're basically taking the essence of the character and putting it into a game. So that's sort of how it came to be. Yeah.
So how much of this backstory, because you mentioned all these things that have happened in the Conan story, how much of that is going to be in this game particularly, or is this going to be kind of an extension of that already existing story?
It's going to be a bit of an extension of it, but you're not playing as Conan. Of course, you're meeting Conan in the sort of opening minutes of the game when your character has been nailed to a cross and sent to an exiled existence in a land that he or she doesn't really know. And then suddenly Conan comes along, cuts you down from the cross and says, okay, you have a choice now. Are you going to live? Are you going to die? What are you going to do? And then he sort of just walks away. He's about 25, 26 years old in the game. And so he's still in his journeyman days. He hasn't really he has yet to become king of Aquilonia. And he's currently wandering the desert trying to find his way.
Now, this isn't Funcom's first Conan game. So was this process of making Conan Exiles, I guess the beginning process of that, a little bit easier because you've already worked with that name and that series in the past?
Yeah, I think so. For a lot of the devs that we have on the team now have also a lot of experience from working on Age of Conan, and some of the visual similarities are there, I guess, but this is from the ground up a new game in a new genre, and we've also had to take some of the stuff that's been we also had to take things that like old concepts from Age of Conan and sort of rework them a little bit to fit more into Conan Exiles, because Age of Conan took place in worlds that people already knew, whereas Conan Exiles takes place in the exiled lands, which is a place that we've sort of invented for ourselves for this game. And so this allows us to sort of stretch our creative juices a little bit and maybe do some more cool shit that you haven't seen before. And of course, we're putting putting cool stuff into the game.
Now, you mentioned the development team. How big is the team that is specifically dedicated to working on Conan Exiles?
There are about 30 to 40 people. I don't have an exact number. So we're a fairly smaller developer than we were compared to our Age of Conan and the Secret World days, when we were, I think, 400 or 500 people all across the world. Now we're 2 studios. We're the studio here in Oslo, and we're a studio in Durham in North Carolina. and our Durham guys are working on our live games. So they're maintaining Age of Conan, they're maintaining the Secret World, and doing stuff there. So it's about 30 to 40 people on Conan Exiles. So it's a fairly small studio compared to what we've been, but it allows us to adapt the development of the game in a much better way than a bigger studio would have, in my opinion at least. And so working with the community is really important for us on this game, because then we can rework the game and tweak it the way the community wants, so it'll be the best experience for them.
Now, it's funny how perspective plays into that, because you say a small development team coming from some of your larger games, and we look at some of these indie games, and it's like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people developing a game. How many people are actually working on the development process of the game out of the 30 people that are working on it? Is it a good chunk of it that are dealing with the nitty-gritty, making the game, making the map, making the characters?
Yeah, absolutely. I think apart from the 4 guys that we have in the marketing department, everyone is adding something to the game, whether it be cinematics or costumes, or working on the environment, making like the landscape look as cool as possible, adding things to the combat system, working out the way crafting works, working on animation, coding, optimization, all that stuff. So we're a very focused developer now compared to what we've been before.
How long has this game been in development?
For about a year.
Oh, so pretty short. And this game is supposed to be it's launching on Steam Early Access on Tuesday the 31st.
Yes.
So did that go by pretty quick? I mean, typically we just talked to the Miscreated developers a couple weeks ago, and they've been working on this game since like 2012. And it's still in early access. Do you think that maybe the team size had something to do with the way that you could get this game out in about a year to early access?
I like to think so. I'm a very recent hire. I've only been working in Funcom for about 6 months, but for me personally, I think the 6 month I've seen a lot of changes happening to the game in the past 6 months that have been going on, and I think the fact that we're a much smaller developer now lets us really, really quickly move through stuff, and everyone realized that everything is like all the animators know that it's on me now. I can't blame this stuff on anyone else. If I think it's bad, then probably other people will think it's bad. So I'm gonna have to be the one to do it, and I'm gonna have to make it look as cool as possible. And I think that counts for the entire team.
I think with a smaller team like that, you're probably a little bit more likely to have a little more gratification out of what you do, because when you have a team of 300 to 400 people, the part that you put in seems much smaller. I'm sure that the animators, they play the game or they see the game played, they're going to be like, I did that part. I did a big piece of that. I had a hand in it. Do you know if the technology that you're using with this one versus your previous title, are you guys using something different? Is a lot of the same, or did you guys adapt something differently with the newer, engines or whatever else that's coming out? Do you know that?
Engine-wise, this is almost completely new for us. This is being developed in the Unreal 4 engine, and we've also done work in the Unreal 4 engine previously on the Park. But for the Oslo studio, it's those 2 games in the Unreal 4 engine. The other games have been developed in our the Dream World engine, is what we've called it. And so it's still a bit of a learning process for some of the guys here. But I think for most of them, they managed to master a lot of it for the Park, and then brought that experience into Conan Exiles. So a lot of stuff have had to be redone. Like I said, we've taken some old concepts from Age of Conan and brought that into Conan Exiles, but we've had to basically rebuild everything that we did in Conan Exiles in Age of Conan from the ground up.
Now, you mentioned something interesting that we've talked about in the past. Was Dreamworld a proprietary engine that you folks had developed in-house, or was that something
Yes.
Now, I know you've only been around for 6 months with the company, but do you know of the process that led to that decision? We deal with the game H1Z1, and their biggest downfall seems to be the lack of their engine being able to do essentially an MMO, a massive online game. Was that part of the decision process when we said, hey, we need to do Unreal because our current engine is not going to be able to sustain 70 people playing on a multiplayer server?
I'm really sorry, but I can't really answer that because I just don't know.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
And from the previous title, it seemed to have handled a lot of players, so I don't necessarily think that's the issue. It probably was a lot of the Unreal Engine has some incredible technology that for them to maintain and keep up, that would take a much larger team of people that are just maintaining only the engine. Going to something like Unreal, you can have all of your people focusing on actually making the game, not just making the technology that allows the game to be made. So I mean that may not be, but that's what I see a lot of companies being able to come out and have a team of 30, 40, 50, 100 people or less and make an incredible game, just because that mass amount of people having to try to maintain that is gone.
Yeah, I've played around a little bit with the Unreal Engine, and there's some really cool stuff that you can do with it if you really manage to learn it. So yeah, it's a good tool to have.
Now, getting into some more detailed stuff, what makes Conan, as we said at the beginning, there's a lot of games that are doing early access survival. It's
Sure.
It's a saturated market. What specifically in your mind makes Conan different than everybody else? What separates you from all of the other developers that are making survival games in 2017?
So I think first of all, there's Conan's world. There's all the lore and the backstory that we're going to be implementing into the game. Our creative lead is Joel. He's a huge Conan nerd, and you can ask him to quote basically any Conan book, and he'll almost do it completely by heart. And so he's putting a lot of the descriptions and item descriptions and the lore pieces you can find throughout the game are based in Robert E. Howard's original works. So that's one thing. You have the lore and you have the world of Conan the Barbarian. In addition, we're working very hard on making the melee combat the best in the genre that we can do. So because we really want the brutality of Conan's world to be reflected in the game, and so we're working really hard on making a good combat system. In addition to that, we have the thrall system, which lets you capture NPCs and break their will on the Wheel of Pain, so they can work for you as artisans, they can work for you as guards, they can work for you as priests, and we're going to be expanding that as we go into early access. And finally, we have at least for early access launch, we have a religion system that lets you worship the gods of Hyboria and eventually gain their favor. And hopefully, if you gain enough of their favor, you can summon a giant avatar of their likeness and use that to stomp your enemies.
Do you think that already having because this game is based off of an already existing character and an already existing story, do you think that made the development process easier? You look at games like Ark and Miscreated and H1Z, and there was nothing there. This was an idea that pretty much spawned from nothing. I wonder do you think that had something to do with the kind of the
rapid development?
Exactly, easing into the game development, as you didn't have to spend 6 months, just writing story after story after story, rejected. Oh, we like this one, rejected. What do you think about that?
I think it helps a little bit because then you can look at something that you might add to a survival game and then think, will this fit in with Conan's world? So for example, on our Steam forums, we had someone asking if it was possible to add rifles to the game, at which a lot of people said, no, this wouldn't fit in with the world that they're building and the stories that they're trying to create. And so you can very easy, and of course Conan's world is based on the history of our own world, so you can take a lot of historical reference photos and things and put that into say the costumes and the architecture of the things that we're building in the world. And it's really just it's good to have a very, very strong art style and world to take from, I think.
You actually just took my exact next question that I was going to ask, was saying, how do you decide? Because that's one area that I see with a lot of the survival games is that kind of lack of direction. I mean, you look at a game like Ark, there's just a whole range of technologies. Nothing has a strong, this is what it is. They just kind of are pulling in a lot of things. And that's something I think with your game that is strong, because I'm a person who really cares about lore and the immersion and just feeling like you're in a real experience. The experience that's been crafted for you. I really enjoy that. And I think that if you can have one where there's not those things that you look at and you're like, well, why is that in here? I mean, if you can fit it and keep it to your lore, I think that's really important, because you'll get those people that go in there and you're crafting the whole experience for them, not just giving them whatever the community asked for. I mean, is that something that you guys are having to discuss? Because I think a lot of games have been ruined by listening to the community when they say things like, hey, can we have guns? Because then it turns into laser rifles, and then it turns into, you name it. People then have something that they actually don't like because they got what they wanted.
Yeah, Joel, our creative lead, is he's very focused on every single part of the game fitting into Conan's world. So, like, if we get good suggestions, we'll obviously consider them. But if it all comes down to will this fit in with Conan's world or not, and it doesn't fit in, then we're not going to do it, because then it won't be the game that we're trying to make.
Now, you're the community manager for an early access video game in the age of Reddit and Twitter and social media.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine the abuse you deal with on a daily basis. Some survival games and just early access games in general have, I think, focused too much on trying to appease, like as Brian said, everything that the community wants. We want this, we want that, and it just seems like they just snap right in a line and do whatever the community wants. What's the trade-off? How do you manage, wanting to appease a player base, but also not giving them too much power in the end decision of something that you guys decide?
Well, it's a joint decision, basically. I'm just the messenger from the players to the developers, but also from the developers to the players. So if I were to, I can say to one of the, for example, I can say to the lead designer or our creative director, I can say, oh, a certain group of players said this, and either one of them can just go, well, we're not doing that. And so that's kind of basically it. But yeah, sometimes the squeaky wheel will get the grease, at least in other games. But I think we're going to be doing our best to talk through all the decisions that are being made and all the feedback that we're getting. And I know that Joel already hangs out in the Steam forums and reads all the feedback that people are giving, and sometimes answers back to people as well. And I'm always collecting a lot of data, a lot of feedback from people, and seeing what they want, what they say about the game, and then it's basically up to the leads in the various teams around the studio to implement or not implement something the community asks for.
Now, recently you guys released your plans for server wipes. Can you?
Yes.
Can you cover that? And that seemed to have almost unanimous community support in the way that was implemented. Can you go into your server wipe thing, which is really unique? I haven't seen any other games do.
So initially we announced that we would have official servers and private servers, both PvP and PvE, and they would reset after 30 days. And we saw that the feedback being mostly negative. Well, I'd say 75% negative on the various channels, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Reddit, on the Steam forums, with people going back and forth on whether or not resetting the servers was a good idea. So we sat down and we talked through it and thought, okay, how can we reach something that will hopefully make everyone happy? And so what we landed on is that we're doing official PvE and PvP servers that will not be reset, meaning your progression you will not lose your progression after a certain amount of days. But we're also doing something we call PvP Blitz servers, and they will be reset after 30 days. Blitz basically means that your progression will be happening at a much faster rate. So you'll gain experience more quickly. You will harvest items and resources much faster than you would normally. And then after 30 days, your progress will be reset back to zero. So it was a result of people voicing their opinion, and us reading it and working through it, and then sitting down and then basically discussing it and saying, okay, how can we do this and make it something that everyone will enjoy.
I think you and your team did this perfectly. I think we run into issues with games like Rust.
Thanks so much.
Rust and Ark are the two examples that jump out at me. We tried
that's
playing
what everyone
Ark.
That's what everyone mentioned as well.
You jump into an Ark official server right now, you're instantly going to get wiped out by these mega clans that have been playing the game it's been out for what, almost 2 years now, Brian. That have been playing since day one. They've got every dinosaur in the game. They've got the laser guns. They've got the spaceships. They've got everything that you could possibly unlock in that game. It makes it hard for that. So you have to think 2 years down the line, somebody buys this game. Can they jump into the experience? And they just got to wait 30 days, and they can jump on and play a fresh game with everybody else. I really like that for people that necessarily won't be able to put 2 years of time into the game, but once every couple months can just jump into a new Reset Blitz server, and then after 30 days, okay, I'll play it again in 6 months when when they've added new things and I can jump back into it.
Yeah, thanks for that. And that's one of the things we saw people mention on, for example, Facebook. A lot of people said, I have a wife, I have kids, I have a job, I only have so and so many hours a night to play a game like this, and I don't want my stuff to be gone all the time. I want to be able to choose if or when it disappears. And I think at least for those people, maybe the PvP Blitz servers can be a perfect thing. Then they can experience a lot of the game in just a couple of hours and maybe build themselves a nice little castle and put out some thralls to defend themselves. Or maybe they'll just really quickly get a hold of some weaponry and start being the Reaver and the Slayer that the Exile lands have always been looking for.
Have you had to adjust how your PvP, now that you've made this decision that they're not going to wipe, have you had to adjust how you're going to kind of approach those two types? For instance, you're going to have to worry about servers just being filled with bases everywhere and just clutter. Are you guys now coming up with, since it's not going to be an every 30 days wipe, a way to have that maybe degrade over time or something to keep the server still not cluttered, but people that are active able to have bases and maintain something continuous on the PvP and PvE servers?
Sure. Yeah. The idea is the idea of solving it is twofold. We have there will be implemented a system of basically degrading the things that you build, so it will degrade over time and eventually disappear because it's crumbled. There's also going to be implemented what we call the purge system, and the purge are NPCs, high-level NPCs that come in from the lands outside the exiled lands to basically wreck your shit. And they will wreck everyone's. I think we saw a photo of that. Yeah, and they will be wrecking everyone's shit, unless, of course, people are able to defend themselves against the purge as it happens.
Is that a timed event? Is that something that you can predict is coming, or somehow you'll have a warning that it's coming, or is it just going to be a random event of them wandering in from the outside, and if you're not on, you may come back and things are pretty beat up?
You will you'll be able to know when it's coming if you're in the game, but outside the game, you probably won't be able to notice it unless, of course, your friend suddenly calls you and goes, "Holy shit, the purge is happening." You might be able to see it you will be able to see it coming if you're in the game. This is much like the sandstorm, for instance.
This is something interesting. I don't know if you have any details on this, or if it's even possible. The things that we've seen with games that involve raiding and kind of massive server-wide events, is there any possibility, has your team thrown around the idea of some type of like mobile app or mobile push notifications to say like, hey, like the world is ending, you should probably get to your computer and
warning,
and
yeah,
log
someone
in.
is entering.
Yeah, like everything's about to go down. You should probably stop what you're doing. Screw your family. It's time to play Conan. Like you've got to get on this game. Is that something that's even crossed the mind of the team, or technically even possible?
If it's been mentioned, I haven't heard anything about it. Sorry.
That's always like the interesting thing is we used to play this game, and we'd have timers, people checking in like every hour on the hour, farming crops. It seems like no game so far has been able to implement some type
correctly implement it.
Exactly. Yeah. Ark's got their tripwire notifications, but it doesn't work on official servers.
Well, it works on officials, but not private servers. if you set one up for a private server, it sends the notification that your base is being raided to everyone on the server, which probably doesn't help you very much.
Yeah, so I would be curious if something like that is possible down the line with a game like this, because people do, they do put in 2 years, 3 years worth of time into these games nonstop, getting everything possible. And it seems like that could be something that, I don't know, might be useful for somebody.
I will bring it along and see if anyone thinks it's a good idea.
There you go.
I think it's a good idea.
What about map size? Can you speak to dimensions of the map size compared to something else?
I believe the map size, when we've added all the biomes, like when it's fully complete, will be about 53 square kilometers. I don't know the exact numbers on the early access map, but it's fairly large, and there's a lot of stuff that you can find hidden away in like the corners of the world. There's a lot of really cool caves and with loot at the end of them, obviously, that you can really go into and fight your way through. And it's not easy, absolutely not.
Now, with you're saying multiple biomes, is it going to be a seamless transition between biomes? How are you handling? First of all, 53 kilometers is a huge in-game map. How are you? Do you guys know yet how you're going to handle the transition from one to the other, or is this going to be one large square that just happens to have different biomes on it?
The idea is to have one large square and then just slot the different biomes into it as they're finished.
Okay.
Are these
you'll get to see more of them as like post early access launch.
Are these random gen maps, or all the official servers going to be running on one set of maps? How does that work?
It's the same map across the board.
Okay. Will there be plans down the line to include or implement other maps, sub maps into either official or non-official servers?
At the moment, I don't really know.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything about it.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
Let's talk about this. This is interesting. On the homepage of the Conan website, it's going to Steam Early Access just at the end of this month here, and it's also coming to the Xbox. Can you speak to that process at all? Was that something that your team was dead set on? Like, hey, we have to get this game, of course, to PC players, but we want to get it to the maybe the more casual gamer too that doesn't have a $1,500 gaming PC setup. What was the process behind getting this game on Xbox?
I believe from the get-go, the game was announced for consoles, and then hearing about the Steam preview program, that's a perfect fit for a game like this, where we can put it out and then we can add more stuff to it and see how it works on the console as it goes. I don't know the exact details behind the decision, but I'm assuming it was to get the game in front of as many people as possible. And we're so at the risk of sounding cynical, we're a company that exists to make money, and sometimes putting it out on all the consoles is a way to make money.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, the PC community just hates the fact that this isn't exclusive to us. Like somebody else, the plebs on consoles get to play it for whatever reason.
We're putting it out on PC first, though.
Yeah, there you go. So you'll get your time with it.
Now, one thing I saw that you're gonna be adding mod support. So is that, it says full mod support. I wasn't sure how big that was. Does that mean that people are going to be adding their own, perhaps creatures, weapons? Like, is that what they mean by mod, of actually adding things to the game in their private servers that they can see?
Yes, people can download a Unreal Engine modding tool, and then they can just start away by making stuff. And I don't think we're going to be putting any sort of limitation on what people can create and put into their private servers.
So people are going to have their laser guns in there if they feel like it.
If they feel like it. I mean, I'd love to see a sci-fi adaptation of Conan the Barbarian. It's probably never going to happen, but I think it'd be cool.
One thing I'd be interested to see is if you guys can kind of cooperate a little bit with Epic, who makes Unreal Engine. One thing they've done with Arc is inside of their Unreal editor, they actually have a section for Arc, which auto downloads and makes it really easy for people to create mods. That's one thing I would just, as a suggestion, would be to reach out to them and say, hey, is there a way that we can make this as easy as possible? Because if you can reach that modding community, it's amazing the number of people that you can continue to keep coming back to the game because there's always something new. You know, that's a big community that will keep this game going, even if you guys aren't developing as much new content. Like that drives a whole community by itself.
Sure, absolutely, and it sounds like a good idea, and I will be passing it along.
Now, you're going to be hosting by the time this is airing, you're going to be hosting a dev stream tomorrow. We're recording this on Thursday the 19th. What are the details on that dev stream, and what should people have been expecting from that?
This is the big one. This is the PvP stream, the thing that I've been sort of looking forward to, sort of not dreading, but being excited about in that way that both makes you giddy and just a little bit queasy, I guess, because it's a bit like raiding in this game and getting a lot of people to stand together and fight each other. It's a bit like herding cats. And on a stream where you have developers who have been sitting around working all day, and maybe they want to, I guess, do something crazy and just jump around and ignore the guy trying to give them orders, then maybe they'll do that. So but I think it's going to be good. We're going to be I'm currently building a castle-like fortification thing that we're going to raid out of, and then we're going to attack a city built by one of the other marketing guys. And maybe towards the end, we're gonna summon an avatar and destroy everything, and we'll see how that goes.
So, sounds like fun.
Now, you kind of mentioned there's going to be melee combat, bows and arrows. Like, what kind of things, being that you're going to be doing the PvP area of it, we'll be able to see a lot of that combat. What kind of combats can we expect? So there's going to be bows and arrows and melee weapons, swords, things like that. What are some of the different weapons that you have in this game so far?
So there are swords. I'm gonna try counting on my fingers here. Swords. There are battle axes. There are throwing axes. There are daggers, spears, javelins. We also and a giant hammer, like a giant iron hammer thing that you're carrying in both hands. And personally, that's a really good weapon for just knocking people on their butts. So just like because the combat system will have light attacks and strong attacks. And so if you hold down the mouse button, you're getting a strong attack. And the strong attack with the giant hammer is a really good like just messing people up kind of attack. And of course, there are shields if you want to run around with a sword and a shield, and you can block people's attacks. But if you block too much, it's going to be destroyed, because there's also a weapon stamina system in the game. So we're going to see a lot of cool weapons, I think, in this stream.
Now, talking about transportation, we saw a dev blog a couple of weeks ago, the creatures of Conan Exiles, and one of the questions we had was, are any of these creatures going to be tameable or rideable? Are you going to be able to manipulate these animals and be able to use them to run around the map speed-wise?
Sure. There won't be mounts or taming in the early access launch build, but it is something that we want to add later. And hopefully it'll be the first thing that we like, the first big thing that we add to the game. But of course, everything's subject to change. This is early access, so we might be going in a different direction. But we do want to add mounts, and we do want to add taming. And some of the stuff that you see in the screenshots and the stream are going to be rideable creatures and like transportation creatures. So the rhinos, for example.
Cool. What are the details of this early access? How long are you planning on having this, public servers up for an early access? Obviously, I assume you're going to be shutting everything down, then releasing a final version of the game. Can you cover any of the details on that?
At the moment, we don't expect early access to last more than a year, hopefully. And but seeing as it is early access, things might change. But at the moment, our stance is that early access won't last more than about a year. And then we're as we're continuously developing this game in its early access version, we're also we're also going to be doing a different Conan game that I'm not going to say anything more about. It's known that it's out. It's known that it's something that we're working on or will be working on, but there aren't any details at the moment. But yeah, early access will last for at least a year. Well, up to a year, we're saying.
And I like that you know, we see a lot of these early access forever games. They never come out. It's 2, 3, 4 years of just, hey, we're working on the game. I like the fact that, you know, you guys have a plan, like, hey, we're going to do this for a year or so, and then we're going to release a final product. Because I do think some developers get caught up in, hey, you know, we'll just keep selling it for $30 early access, and, you know, it's never going to really come out.
Early access turned into the final product nowadays, because you never see. I mean, that's all you see on them.
It kind of has, and like this is my opinion as a game player, and not just and not as a community manager for a company. I'm just going to take that hat off for a bit and say that as a player, I've been noticing that early access means that we're putting out a basic final product, and then we're going to be adding to it later. And I think in some ways this is more like, this will not be feature complete as it comes out. There will still be bugs and stuff that we need to iron out, but yeah, we've set our goal, and we're hopefully going to be sticking to it. And Funcom is a company with a good reputation of shipping games and finishing games, and we're not going to tarnish that reputation by not following up on our promises.
I think that's probably the key to this, is that this is not that some of these other companies aren't real companies, but Funcom has shipped, published, brought games to gold. You know, there's a different process behind that than just, you know, throwing it up on the Steam greenlight form and saying, hey, you know, it's me and 3 of my friends, we're making a game kind of thing. So it's just, and it's unfortunate, because you said as a game player, that's what early access has turned into, is just this kind of, hey, this is what we have, and bye-bye.
It seems like real companies are having to now prove that wrong. Like, they're having to come in and say, all right, here's what early access really is. You know, we're actually going to release this game. And you're kind of fighting against that reputation that a lot of these other developers that have found that maybe they're just never held accountable for their product, because they say, hey, it's an early access. No matter what happens, it's always an early access. So you
alpha
can't get
bro.
too mad of us that it's still, it's alpha, bro. Don't get too mad that it's broken.
Have you been reading our Steam forums?
But I think that's what they've kind of fallen back onto, is just saying, hey, any excuses, we don't have to fix that now because it's alpha. You know, setting that timeline of, well, we need to get it fixed so that it's not alpha anymore, you know, is an important thing, because I think a lot of people have lost that.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the things that I've seen as we've been putting out videos, as we've been putting out streams and content updates on the dev blogs, one of the things I've seen is people going, oh, another game that will never leave early access. And we want to keep that promise, because saying that it will last for a year is something that the game players can see. Oh, it's not gonna be one of those other games. It's gonna be something that just hopefully at least the devs are gonna keep their promise, and we want to keep that promise, and we're gonna get her done, I guess.
There. So Jens, if somebody's watching this interview and they're thinking, yeah, this game looks cool and all, what's your final pitch? What can you say to put somebody that you know, likes games like Ark, likes games like Rust? What is Conan gonna have that these people, they need to get this game when it comes out at the end of this month to play? What's that core thing that, hey, this is why you need to download Conan?
Because there's only one game that will let you crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of their women, and that game is Conan Exiles.
Nice.
Jens, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find more information about both Conan, Funcom, and then you personally?
Oh, let's see. They can follow at Conan Exiles on Twitter. We're at reddit.com/Conan Exiles, facebook.com/Conan Exiles. You can add us to our wish list on the Steam store, and we're releasing January 31st in early access. We're also twitter.com/Funcom, FUNCOM, and I am at JEVALER, JEVAALER on Twitter. And if you want to, hear my thoughts about the various things that I have thoughts about, you can go follow me there.
Jens Erik, the community manager for Conan Exiles. Thank you so much for staying late with the time zone difference.
No worries.
It's early morning for Brian. It's almost probably 7 o'clock where you are right now. So thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been really fun.
All right, and that's our interview with Jens Erik of Conan Exiles. Hope everybody enjoyed it. This game has got a lot of game-changing things, Brian. The Blitz server, the 30-day wipe schedule, the massive server-wide purge that's going to be going on.
It seems
I'm
like
really excited.
They're really pushing away from kind of that getting everything built. I mean, that was our biggest complaint about Ark, and I think that they've really answered that in a way that people are not going to be so tied to, oh, that's my base and it has to stay that exact way forever. Like with the purge, with people being able to call these these gods pretty much into the world and to just lay out your bases into ruins, it's going to get people used to the fact that you're making something, but it's not going to be there forever. I think that's going to really help push the game forward into a mindset of, we're constantly rebuilding, we're constantly repairing, we're constantly improving. We never get to the state of it's our base and no one else is ever going to be able to touch us because it's so big and we are so powerful. I think that's really going to answer that problem.
Yeah, and I guess I should mention the goal is next week to have a couple of keys to give away on launch day. The game will be launching next Tuesday, the 31st of January, and the goal is, as of now, to have a couple of copies to give away, courtesy of the folks over at Funcom. So make sure you tune into the show next week as well. That's our goal. Fingers crossed that everything goes through with that, but that's the plan. So got a lot of cool things to look forward to with Conan, and once it's out, we will continue to follow its development with patch notes and updates, just like we do with Ark, H1Z1, Miscreated, and all those other games that we cover.
Yeah, very good.
All right,
we
Brian.
want to go ahead and start the game giveaway?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, so we're going to have exclamation point giveaway will be, and we'll do, everyone will have 30. All right, so if you type now, that should show up in chat. And we are going to be giving away a copy. Let me make sure I give the right one here. All right, so we're going to be doing Capsized for the first game. It is a mostly positive rating. It's an action platformer, indie sci-fi local co-op.
Wow.
So
local co-op is good.
Yeah, so, and
great for the Steam
this
link.
is the perfect thing for exactly. The Steam link is it's a great thing to have if you have a game like this. It's really fun to have local co-op. That's one thing. Laura, we got the PS4, so we sit there and try to find every single local co-op game we can. And
you'd be surprised.
It's actually kind of difficult. There's not as many as I thought.
Exactly. I go through your Steam list. A lot of games have co-op, but just not local co-op. So there's a whole genre of games that are this is a good couch game. Is what it looks like. Sit on a couch with a controller, Steam Link, or gaming PC hooked up to a computer. And be able to play that. So exclamation point giveaway in the chat, and we'll draw the winner coming up here in a couple of minutes after some miscreated news. Hallelujah, Brian. It's the long-awaited number 45 update. And we've been waiting a while for this. It's been over a month, I think, since the last miscreated
it's
update.
been a little over a month.
Now, there's nothing
and this is something
crazy,
they really
right?
focused on fixes.
Exactly. That's the key here. There's no grand new thing that they're adding to the game, but a lot of the things that we've noted and we talked with Chris about last week, some of those things are talked about and fixed here. So, I mean, do we just want to break into these show notes?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do you want to take the first set and I'll take some after
Take
that?
the first set. I'll wrap everything else up.
All right, so the shader cache updated to reduce stalls while playing, because that's one thing they're really trying to get the game smoothed out to where there's not the janky kind of feeling. One thing you'll see a little bit later is they're really working on the animation, so they're really working on getting the game to be as smooth as possible. They removed unneeded database updates when loading a server stored state. They optimize the database updates from the server, so they're saying it takes about half as many requests to talk to the server now. That's one thing that they've been working on is the network efficiency. Their net code has been a big hindrance. So they're really trying to make it as efficient as possible so that when you do talk to the server, it's sending the least amount of data. It gives them a little more freedom to add more players at that point because they can double the amount of players if they cut it in half. Also, they said there's several adjustments to help prevent duping because that was a problem. There are ways that you can do things in games to make it so items duplicate. You can get more and more of the same item when you're not supposed to have that item. The fixed issues were databases left many items orphaned, which caused a lot of extra information in their database. So on private servers and things like that, you would notice the database getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now they're making it so it actually doesn't put those things in there. They fixed an issue where combat logging would remove all items from the player, which not necessarily a really bad thing. I guess if you have people combat logging, it is a little bit of a punishment, but they did risk losing everything that they had. And also, they removed 1 gigabyte of stock content from the CryEngine assets. So things that came with CryEngine during the install were still in the files for this. So it was about 1 gigabyte of information they're able to remove that didn't actually affect the game. So it's not taking anything away from the game. Also, they fixed a number of client fixes, server crashes that were happening. They adjusted the physics proxy of the player so it's closer to the actual model. So let's say you're walking up to something and touching it or walking up to where it should be right up against your body. If that's not correct, there will be a gap there. You won't be able to get right next to something. So they're trying to get the player to where he's a little bit closer, and you can see that the model is able to get as close as possible to objects. And then also they added some information to some of the error messages you'll get back. So like if it says item cannot be carried, it gives a little bit more information so you know what's going on. They reduced the max camera angles vertically to prevent people looking up inside of their own body. So as your camera swings, sometimes you'd see behind the eyeballs and weird things. They are trying to reduce that. Another thing you can't do is jump while crouching or sitting. So you can only jump while standing. And then they fixed an issue that was causing players to get kicked while playing. So you may have noticed that, maybe getting kicked off the server randomly. Ladders are fixed so that now you can't get onto a ladder from behind the ladder. You actually have to be in front of the ladder to climb up. People were using that to kind of glitch through walls. Also, they fixed an error that was happening with the cursor when people had really high DPI displays. And also, vehicle inventory items have been optimized so that it reduces the network usage for the CPU usage. So as I said, they're really trying to make this game more efficient so they can bring more and more players. They haven't upped it because I think they're running into things like this. They haven't upped the number to like 70 players because they're trying to get it to where it's not going to lag people out. It's not going to lag out the servers, be as efficient as possible. So let's jump into some of the new items because there's a couple more fixes, things with like vehicles, but let's go into some of the new items that they added in this one.
So there's a couple of new things in here, Brian. The first one is the headlamp added, and this can be turned on and off via the UI context menu in the UI. This is good. There are already flashlights in the game, but you have to have it in a slot and you have to have it on. So a headlamp allows you some more flexibility, not having to use up a weapon slot. Or an item slot, especially since inventory management is such an issue in a game like Miscreated. Being able to get rid of that flashlight in turn for a hat or a helmet is definitely, I think, a good trade-off in my opinion. Some items as well, some new things, also some fixes as well. Fixed barbed wire not being able to be picked up. The gnomes also had that issue; they couldn't be picked up. Made baklavas, which are those ski masks they pull over. I don't know how it's actually pronounced, but those are those big ski masks. Those couldn't be ripped. And neither could the sleeve vests. Those couldn't be ripped either. So those items wouldn't be
pretty much you had to drop them onto the ground.
Exactly, because you couldn't turn them into rags, use them for bandages, so on and so forth, which could have been an issue. Lug wrenches can no longer repair base walls, which could be an issue. Rifle flashlight attachment light changed to match small mag light, so they just swapped out the rifle flashlight.
It was probably
too
different.
Big.
They made them different, and so they're actually the same size flashlight. So they just made it so the light was actually the same light coming out of the flashlight.
Exactly. Increased 45 ACP stack size to 30, so that'll stack to 30 now, which is good. Glowing material added to the flashlights when they're on.
We ran into this.
Yes.
People would say I would say my flashlight's not on, or I don't remember how it went, but you wouldn't see
You
that
can't
your
see it.
flashlight was either on or off versus what the players next to you are seeing.
The only way you could tell if you were in a really, really dark room, you could see it kind of on the floor or something, but that's about it.
Yep.
Other than that, a couple of other things here, some camping-related base parts, moved gun spawns that were stuck on a shelf, widened physics proxy opening on privacy fence so players could go through the gaps. Another variation of camping tents spawned in the world and then fixed a shelf that players could get stuck behind. That would really suck. There's just one base building change here that they have listed. Some new camping-related parts are now spawning in. And then a couple things on the map.
That's one thing they're encouraging is kind of having tents and things at your base.
Yes, and we heard
set
that
settlement up.
specifically last week that maps, or it turns out camping and tents may be the way to go. Maybe we're doing it wrong, trying to come in and build a base. Map-wise, there's a couple new things in here as well. This one's pretty important. They expanded the west region of Hayward and the river leading to Hayward. So now you can drive a boat up there if you'd like to do so. More of the northern river from Brightmoor, and this includes a little bit of the road towards the dam and the swamp area across the river. The building in Hayward with the missing door that everyone falls into should now be fixed. Very specific. You'd know about that if you saw it. Added rain oculars to cabins so it doesn't rain inside them. That was a big issue with Miscreated.
And I think that they've done it in the cabin. They're probably going to be doing this building to building
Yes.
because you'll notice when it's raining, you're
The
looking
rain
on
comes right
the
inside.
tables and things. It's raining inside as well.
Some
so
of the
they have probably to manually put all these things in there, which they're starting building by building. So that'll be kind of cool because it really just adds to the effect. Kind of takes you out of it for a second. When you're inside of a building, you look up, you see the ceiling, and then it's also raining.
Yeah. A couple of other map things. The police department floor was modified to help prevent items falling when they were dropped. That's always an issue. And then the lumber yard, that is, south of Brightmoor has been updated as well. There's a couple of other little audio things, throwing sounds for grenades and flashbangs, added sounds to birds, which that's got to be pretty annoying. I would imagine you're going to now hear that subtly when you're playing by yourself. You'll just hear chirping in the distance or something like that.
If they make it to where, okay, so just
you
to
didn't
go
miss
into
it, so you're going to notice it when now that it's there.
But if they do it right, there's two ways to do it. You can have it to where constantly you just have noises in the background, but the right way to do it is you put pockets of noises. So you put that randomly, this little area will kind of have bird sounds every once in a while. So it's not constant happening all the time. But it kind of just, as you're moving through the world, you just notice these things.
Yeah. Other than that, there's some, the big thing is automated server restarts for people that run their own servers. That was an issue. You had to manually restart your server. So if you want to set a time period for it to restart, you can do that now. Other than that, a couple of little animation things and some textures. If there's nothing else you want to cover on this note, so far, there's just one other thing I wanted to mention is they added more hints to the main menu. Miscreated's a little hard to get into. Part of that is the UI. Part of that is
trying to figure out that you hit F when you rather than E.
Exactly.
Depends on which game you come from, because if you come from certain games, you're like,
if you come from Arma military simulator kind of games, the Miscreated loadout keyboard loadout fits perfectly fine. If you come from H1Z1, Arc, maybe some of those other games, it's more E to interact, tab for inventory, things like that. But of course, all that stuff is bindable or unbindable, which is very weird how that works because it doesn't unbind when you rebind, but nevertheless.
No, they're really working on the UI here next, so that's stuff that they're going to be working out. And the big thing for me was the animations. I'm excited to see because I don't know that they've really put a lot of time in the animations for a while. I mean, they maybe have had guys working on animations, creating new things for new content coming out, but here they're fixing some of the past animation things. So I really want it so when the characters come in, it's just you can see the character moving smoothly, that you don't get pulled off by like having him hunched over and have weird bends in him. That really puts you into the experience when you see you're not distracted. You shouldn't even notice the animations as a thing. It should feel natural when you're watching it.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's it. This was the long anticipated 5 GB Miscreated update.
And that's with 1 GB taken out.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad I shut down my Steam during the show, knowing me that'll start auto updating while we're on the air here. But this is good. This is a good update. As much as new features and things like that are important, getting the little things fixed, like not being able to pick up barbed wire, not being able to pick up the gnomes, things like that are just as important as adding new features. So we'll keep you up to date with that. Expect another update probably within the next month or so with some new changes in it.
And this was a lot of bug fixes, so I'm sure they've got other content, some of the new content that they're still producing in the background that they didn't roll into this, because this was a bug fix release.
Yeah.
I'm sure next time we'll see, and they did open up. They opened up along that river. You can now push a boat out into the water. I don't know if it's just when it gets stuck, you can get out and then kind of push it back in. I think maybe they'll be able to do that with military trucks so we can get unstuck next time.
Oh, yeah.
So, whatever. All right, so let's go ahead and roll for the raffle.
Okay.
All right, so it's Cacta Crazies.
Ah, you handled that pretty well. I didn't know how to start.
Phonics works for me.
Yeah, I'm glad it works for somebody here. Congratulations.
So congratulations.
Yep, there'll be a...
yeah, you don't have to say his name.
There'll be a private message on Twitch. It'll most likely be in the spam folder with a link to the key for that game. Redeem it on Steam. And
we'll be doing another one a little bit later in the show. So if you didn't get this one, we'll do another giveaway about right towards the end of the show for another game.
There we go. Let's transition over to Ark. And Brian, I gotta say, I'm a little let down. And as I believe I predicted properly last week, they will go to the 100th place.
Yes,
with decimal point wise. Actually, that would be the 1000th place. Oh no, it's the 100th place.
Yeah, they are getting there on this one.
They have 4 updates left, and it's all over.
And the thing is, and I have it in here, they're not running their update till the 30th.
Yes.
So 6 more days.
Which is unfortunate. We were really looking forward to that. When was that update supposed to be out?
The 20th. So it was supposed to be 4 days ago.
Oh, okay. So obviously some major delay with this.
Needing to be reworked. So that's one thing. We'll see what they do. I don't know if that's set in stone, if they decide that they get it fixed and they're just giving themselves a little bit of leeway. We contacted them and they said that they're really doing a push on this.
Yes. So we heard back from them this week. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're like, we're really busy with this patch. So we're going to talk to them after the patch, because obviously they don't push things out 10 days for no reason.
Yeah, exactly. This, as much as we give a hard time to Daybreak and some of these other games with development, Ark has been arguably the most solid game that we've covered on this show. Every week Christmas week, there was like 4 updates into the game with some significant things added. They are very, very solid with that stuff. And when they miss an update, it is... especially 10 days. Not like it's 2 or 3 days. 10 days.
Obviously, it's bothering them because they're like, we can't really work on anything else. We can't really do interviews. We can't do anything else. We got this update.
Exactly.
So they're incredibly focused on it at the moment.
They did a couple updates this week. Nothing really in here, though.
Yeah, it's a lot of fixes because their patch coming up is really big. So obviously, they're not going to be pulling things out of that to try to do this. So they fixed an issue with Pegomastics usage causing invisible player connections and then corrupting the save games. So they did a retroactive fix for that. This was January 20th, so it was 4 days ago, and that was 253.99. So they're into those numbers. Here we're going down the rabbit hole. So it's 253.992 at this point.
Why'd they skip 9.1?
So these are internal, probably internal non-published. So they're probably doing patches internally, testing
them. Not good.
And so that shows you between .99 to the .91 that something didn't go for that. They did another one. And then you'll see after this one, they actually have a number of patches. So you can tell they're trying to figure something out.
Yeah.
In this one, this was also January 20th. It was put out the same day. Primitive Plus had a major update. And I'm going to have a link when they do updates for that one. There's a big list. So we'll go over those in a minute, roughly, not every detail. But they did put out another major revision for Primitive Plus, and they fixed a fuel array crash that affected Primitive Plus. So this was a Primitive Plus fix. And then the next day they did 253.995, and we've got 9 more days till their patch, and they're on .995. So they're probably already on .999 internally. So January 21st, they said they fixed an issue with spoiling timers, and so they recommend a server upgrade for this because that's something that would affect your game for everyone on a server. So that is 253.995. As I said, 254 will be pushed out January 30th. I'm not sure if that's planned on changing, but if you look at that list, they're having the new hairstyles. They have the tech tier phase 1. They got all those dinosaurs alliance chat, so you can actually have chat that's specific for tribes that you're aligned with. They're having a lance for jousting, which was brought up earlier in chat, and then they're having some admin commands and things like that. And they're going to be adding 5 more players or player levels and dino levels. So it'll go 5 up. This will probably be on the official servers that they will go up 5, because you can manually set them on private servers. So the official servers are going to get a little bit harder, a little bit higher level dinos. As far as the patch we'll have this is Primitive Plus 1.4. We'll have this in the show notes.
If you're really into Primitive Plus, if like you only play Primitive Plus, you'll be able to read all of the details on this.
And they added items. They added a number of engrams. They did a number of fixes. But
before you get into this, I'm very impressed that they're still working on this mod. I mean, this mod's been out for a while now. This was a community mod that they implemented into the game. If I just switch over to the screen view here, I mean, they're still putting some work into this mod that's been out for a while now. I gotta say, hats off to the people over there at Wildcard. They're doing. I don't know
how big their development team is, but they do a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's very impressive, and hopefully we can get them on the show and we can ask them, because that's one thing we like to ask: how big is your development team?
Yes. There we go.
So, all right. So that's pretty much, that's pretty much ARC news. Let's go and jump into some H1Z1 news. I'm not sure what order you wanted to do this in.
Unfortunately, it's not even H1Z1 news. It's just like a whole plethora of things. All of this stuff is all over the place. Let's start with King of the Kill. We had a couple of updates with King of the Kill this week. In one pretty big update that I recommended a year ago, over a year ago, when, or this is possibly the implementation of the idea I recommended a while ago when we had the H1Z1 developers on the show. And that is going to be ping restrictions on the North American servers. I recommended this on episode 14 of Infection. I said, when are you going to put in a region block? Because at the time, there was a massive amount of Chinese hackers that were buying like 14-cent Russian keys for this game.
It took them, 92 episodes to
finally,
make it happen.
Finally, there's going to be some ping restrictions. They just increased the ping restrictions for NA today. The North American servers, that is. If your ping is too high, your weapon will be locked and you will be unable to fire. So,
and this does affect. I mean, if you look at like Unicorn Joe, he's over in Australia. Got PH and Green Man and a lot of people that are over in the UK, Europe area. This can affect them because
we'll have to jump
their ping is
to
too
the UK
high.
server. We'll end up having to jump to the UK servers probably to kind of a mixture for everybody to connect in.
Yes.
But that's fine. If that's
for competition, this is necessary.
Exactly.
If you're doing Just Survive or something like that, you can get a little more leeway. But with King of the Kill, it's supposed to be a competitive game, and you see the lag and the crazy things that happen. I think that's what forced them to this place, was probably Dr. Disrespect embarrassing them so much by people flying around and like jumping all over the place, people running in with no heads, just silly stuff. That's a lot of it's probably coming down to lag.
Well, and I'm seeing some people in chat like, oh, rip this country, rip that country. It's unfortunate for people like us that have a group of people internationally that play all over the place. Yeah. The good thing is we can find a workaround. This is only on the North American servers that they're adding ping restrictions, so we can still play on the which we'll probably end up doing is we'll end up playing on the EU servers when we're playing with people that are outside of the region. That'll allow the EU servers, but there was unequivocally, I can't speak to it anymore. I tried to play the game this week and I played 2 games and I was ready to put a hole through my monitor. There was a crazy amount of hacking going on the North American servers. I can't speak to if that's been fixed completely. I've definitely seen a lot less of it. But this is the step to a region block. Now it doesn't say a number, which I think is deliberate. so that people can't fake. I'm sure there's a way to fake that out somehow. There's a way to.
I don't know.
There's got to be a way that you can set your ping, some way somehow. I have no idea how they check it, but we'll see how this works.
Well, I mean, if they're doing it server side, like
Brian.
it depends how they're implementing it.
Let's be realistic here. There could
Okay,
be there could
they're
be
like,
some.
hey, how about you ping us and tell us how good your ping is? That's probably what they're doing.
Yeah.
We'll just have you ping google.com. If it's good, you're in.
Yeah, so we'll see what the result is, and they said, please let us know if you're being locked up and it doesn't seem right. So if you're playing in North America and you're getting locked up, maybe contact them. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. They're doing not AMAs. They're doing open answers on, not open answers, like an open forum on Discord every Friday, I believe, with the developers, and other days through the week they're doing AMAs on Reddit, stuff like that. They've really picked up that social media activity in the past couple weeks. They're doing the Discord stuff almost every week, so on and so forth. So we'll keep you up to date with how the results of this ping restriction works. But this is big news. And we haven't had any of that, unfortunately, in a while.
Yeah, and now another thing. So they did put out a patch. So this was Kill Counter in Preseason 3. This was released today, if I remember correctly. Isn't this one you just put in? So this is going to be an update that's coming in tomorrow or midnight. Tonight. Is it midnight tonight?
Yep, that'll be midnight tonight.
All right, so they're going to be doing Preseason 3. So if you are placed on the leaderboard, the top 10 scores. Okay, so as a wrap up to 2, they're participating people who completed a top 10 score and placed on the leaderboards will receive their shotgun reward. So they're getting some sort of a shotgun skin for doing this. It's like an American flag.
No, you're going to be getting that shotgun.
Oh, is it? No, that's the one. Oh,
this was the
Okay,
so
I thought everybody was getting that.
If I remember correctly.
Oh no, you're correct. So they're getting the shotgun skin that has kind of a skull.
Yeah, the same as the backpack. So if you did preseason 1, you got this, and if you did preseason 2,
so they're kind of building an outfit that's purely for people that have won all preseason.
Now, I do have a problem here because there was only supposed to be one preseason. And then it was supposed to go from preseason 1 to live to season 2. We did preseason 1. We just completed preseason 2. Why are we having a preseason 3? There wasn't even supposed to be one.
I mean, are they
preseason
saying season 1 is going to be when they feel like it's stable?
Oh, I have no idea. But originally it was supposed to be just one preseason. Then, I mean, Brian, we're into the 3rd preseason. Like, when is this stuff going to start? I mean, at some point, the ball's just got to get rolling. I get that things don't work, folks, but what are you doing? And I know that they're
changing scoring again.
I get it, but why are we doing the 3rd preseason now? It just doesn't make any sense to me. When there was only supposed to be one.
Supposed to be launched in September.
Yeah,
so that's
done.
Probably our answer.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Everything is pushed off. So they make goals, and obviously I think they jumped too early into these preseason things.
They should never have had one. The first preseason.
They're still trying to figure out how the whole thing works, and now they're stuck into these season things. So they're just going to have to keep doing. I mean, we may be up to preseason 10 before they're like, oh, now we're in season 1.
Yeah, what they realistically should have done is the first preseason should have just been open play. Like, it wasn't called anything. So
they should just had a score thing to say this will be reset at some time once we figure out everything.
Yeah. So they're going to preseason 3. They're redoing some of the scoring. But in with that also comes they've upgraded the UIs in some area. Kill count and value of the next kill have also been added to the game's HUD. Leaderboard tiers have also been added to the kill feed so that everyone can see when they kill someone in bronzes, someone in royalty. You can see who you're killing, what rank they are, so on and so forth. And then finally, you can now click on a player's name in-game leaderboards to view their top 10. There was an issue with the EU servers today. They had to move the servers to new hardware.
So during this downtime that they're having tonight, they're going to be transitioning all, because they've constantly had problems with the EU servers.
Always like, oh,
Just
servers are down for
horrible things.
hours. Yeah, exactly.
And they must not have the same hardware as what their US servers and some of the other areas servers are. So they're going to whole new hardware for all the EU servers. You should notice a big difference in how that plays. I mean, I assume they're going to something that's comparable with the other servers.
Yeah. Now, for all of you airdrop lovers, I have sad news to report. Brian, the airdrop tickets have been phased out. Remember, part of early access was you get 5 whole airdrop tickets? They've been phased out. They will, during this downtime, they will be automatically converted to scrap, which is good, and then you'll be able to do the whole scrap system and make things and scrap things. So that's kind of unfortunate. Steam accounts that have airdrop tickets but no Daybreak account will see the airdrop tickets removed, but an equivalent number of special items that would be available to be scrapped. So they're transitioning that out. For King of the Kill, remember, Just Survive will, I mean, I would assume so, will still have airdrops. That seemed to be kind of a key feature of that. Other than that, there's just a couple of
fixes. The one thing with the end game UI,
this is it. Yeah.
So some of these are kind of for both patches, because Just Survive got something similar. They're getting kind of death screen changes. Some of these patches do line up with Just Survive as well. They've cleaned up the screen at the end, so it gives you information like who killed you.
Wow,
that was a big complaint.
What did I do?
They weren't actually saying who killed you. How much XP did you earn, and how many points did you receive during that time? And it says it'll no longer be skipped, and players should not be kicked out of the match while viewing their end screen. So it won't exit you out until you actually click to the next screen.
Now,
to get out of it.
Now, unfortunately, it does. For example, when you win a game, it typically crashes your game after. And I would have expected to see something about that, and I didn't. So hopefully they can work on that as well. I saw a couple streamers, they win the game, and it's pretty much alt tab.
And that's happened to me a lot. Just
alt tab task manager,
or it locks up to where you're alt F4ing.
Exactly. So other than that, a couple of other things here. There's some car ejections. There was some number of cases in which your reload would be interrupted, so on and so forth. Just some random other things, some exploits.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy.
Things with animations, and then they just fixed a number of bugs. So bug fixes other than the things we said, fixing some exploits. So hopefully they usually don't give a lot of details when they talk about these things, but some of the things that we've been seeing, hopefully this fixes that, because there was infinite inventory that was happening. So some people would have a lot more items than they were supposed to. They actually re-enabled the emotes, so that was a big deal.
Yeah, today the internet was freaking out that this is what
emotes are now enabled again.
Thank the Lord.
Flip people off as you're running by.
As you miss all of your shotgun shots.
Yep. It says here are more shelves. Here are some shelves in the world that would allow players. So I don't like how they word this. There were shelves in the world that would allow players to be protected from incoming fire, and so you could shoot from the position, but they couldn't shoot you back. And so now they've fixed that to where the bullets are now both ways, because that was a little exploit that people are taking advantage of. So, and then also crouch spamming. So, the whole just jumping up and down so people can't shoot you. There's now a delay, so that you can't just constantly crouch up and down. So it's a slower action. So you shouldn't be people doing that as you go into a firefight, just spamming crouch.
Yeah. Which is controversial. Unfortunately, timed events in this game don't typically tend to work out. They're essentially adding a delay for crouching.
They're probably making the animation complete a little bit more.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. Like, is this animation are you gonna get stuck mid animation if you reload? I can already see issues with this, and it's not. Let's just be
how
real.
It should be, or how it probably will be.
What it's gonna do is it's just gonna slow down the speed of your animation, or there's gonna be a delay from when you press control to when you actually control.
They'll probably make it so that when you crouch, you can't stop it midway. Like, you're gonna have to either go down. You'll still be able to pull up your gun. Like, the upper body and the lower body of the animation should be separate. So whatever actions you're going to do with your arms, should notice what the word should in there.
Keyword.
They should be separated. So when you're standing up and you're crouching down, maybe even switching weapons, that should be totally independent of your legs.
Yeah,
it should be. And so this is just probably forcing them to continue until they get a certain amount down, or they just don't let you hit it as quickly. I don't know how they implemented it, but it could be two ways. Either they're forcing the animation to be a certain percentage before it stops, or they're saying, all right, did you push it in the last second, or, quarter of a second, eighth of a second? If so, you can't push it again for another eighth of a second, and kind of just putting that delay.
I have no idea how this is going to work. But that,
I mean, I agree with it. It gets annoying when you see people coming into a fight just spamming like crazy.
I don't like that it's in there. I just don't know how the and again, I could be jumping the gun with this, but I don't think the implementation is going to work. I'm sorry. I'm just speaking from past experience. I could see a lot of issues with this implementation where, great, now I'm stuck in crouch. I can't get up. I can't do this. I can't do that because of some time delay that they've hacked into the game for all intents and purposes. And then real quick on the scoring. So this was our criticism after the last H1Z1 Invitational, how they rank your place. And so for the new score, this doesn't change the ranking, but for the new score values, you get a score based on both finishing position and, most importantly, kills.
Yes.
Surprise, sitting in an RV.
It's no longer sitting around. You don't have to sit around and just hide in a bush to see if you can last longest and get a good ranking.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's how a lot of people are getting into top 2, is just avoiding.
We saw it on the Invitational. We saw multiple people from this Invitational that had 0 kills came in top 10 paid out, I think, in the Invitational. Top
a number
10.
of them did.
And just I would say probably half of them in both of the games.
There were people in the top 3, I think, that had one person in the top 3, I think, had. I don't remember, the third place person had no kills.
Yeah,
something like that.
There was a problem. There was obviously a problem, some type of disconnect there. So now this is good. It'll be interesting to see how this plays down in the Invitational.
If they can take that number and say, hey, it's no longer what order did you die.
Yes, which is what it is.
10 kills. If you can get 10 kills in, that should be worth more than someone that gets dies fourth from last and gets 0 kills.
Yeah, exactly. And then of course, the freaking follow cam is still not in the game. I don't understand how. Oh yeah, and I try to keep this stuff positive.
They've let it slide under the rug to where we haven't even noticed. Like, we quit talking about it.
The follow cam was teased in during TwitchCon in September of 2016. It is practically February of 2017, and we're still working on it. We're still ironing out issues. It's still being worked on. How
hard can it be? That's what I wonder.
I just don't understand what did we see at TwitchCon? Obviously not the same thing, because there's no way that it's taken this long to perfect that system. Obviously something wasn't that system must have been botched together, and then they had to actually build a real one for player implementation. I for the life of me can't figure it out. I saw somebody tweeted
this is something that I've said, like, why don't you just put a temporary, I've said this too many times now, but just pretend like they're in a vehicle. How do you make someone drive as a passenger in a vehicle? I mean, it's the same concept, right?
I guess.
You have a player in game. A person in a vehicle is following you around practically. They're locked in the vehicle. Have it be to where the person's locked on you. Don't allow them to interact with the world. Make them invisible and make them just follow. Yeah. Like, it's not that hard to do something that works, that shouldn't be causing that much more lag, because players are still going to be considered in the game, but they'll still be considered in the game in whatever way they come up with anyways.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Why they wouldn't put something like that in, unless it's just harder than we think with their game code, like with their engine. I mean,
possibly. I just don't see how it was.
It's a vehicle.
But here's my problem. Here's my problem, Brian. This was almost ready months ago. How is it not? How is it still not ready? Like,
they probably put their priority somewhere else.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. They're
thinking about other things.
I don't see how this could be almost ready like 3 months ago, and now it's still. We're still ironing it out, man. Still working on it, bro. Like, how? How has this not been? It just boggles my mind. In Just Survive news, we had a test server update on the 20th, and there was almost all fixes. Fixed 3.
But a lot of these are from King of the Kill patches, so they're really just implementing King of the Kill changes into Just Survive. So I mean, I guess there probably is a little bit of custom things they need to do because their code base is getting different enough. But these probably a lot of the crash fixes. They had, I think there was some things with the vehicles. Some of these things are just things they're bringing over from King of the Kill, so we're able to take advantage of those.
Yep.
And that one thing, they removed the night vision goggles.
Yes, which
did they only put those in because of the they wanted to do that video?
Well, remember that video was a King of the Kill trailer, I think.
Yeah, with deer and everything. We've got.
But yes, Brian. I don't want to talk. Brian, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it with you. Just a couple of generic updates. Nothing crazy.
So they had some base exploits they fixed.
Just nothing crazy. Some crash conditions. A bug where looking at the edge of the decks wouldn't bring up the build permission list. Fixed an exploit with the hospital airdrop. Just odds and ends things here and there. And then
one thing they had with weather. I don't know if you saw this.
I saw this. This is really cool.
Now, is this stuff that's in the current test build?
Yes, this is currently on the test server. Let me see if
they're actually having kind of a better lighting system at night. So do you have some of those pictures?
Yeah. I'm pulling them up right now. I guess we'll start with this night one, and it is very dark. Unbelievably dark. It's almost so dark on my screen I can't even see it. So it is the nighttime is dark. It's spooky. That's what we'd like. Here's a kind of a different view with a little more gamma on it. You can see how the headlight is kind of showing some of those. I think those are zombies and a wolf in the distance,
chilling on the road.
And then the big one. This is it. The snow. Which, I mean, now that I've played some of these other survival games, I realize this looks like absolute garbage.
But remember when it was first released?
You know what this looks like, Brian? This looks like you added confectionery sugar over the top of everything. That's literally what it looks like. It's like somebody went through with some sugar. It was like, hey, there we go. It's not actively snowing, I don't think, in this. It's just hazy and foggy.
It puts a layer on top of things.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
not very impressive. And then, but now this I'm very impressed with. This is this isn't a sunset, but it's the way that the sun, it kind of cascades through the sky late at night with the clouds. There's some different colors in here too. It's not all blue. Yeah. There's some very faint.
Seems like it's a purple tint to it.
Very faint, tintable purple color, and a yellow farther closer to the sun. But this is an impressive screenshot. This looks very nice. I hope this wasn't like manipulated in any way with like a Photoshop plugin.
I mean, it looks good. And it'll be interesting to see because it seems like people really felt that early on the game looked better, and then it has gotten worse over time.
Some of those early videos the developers have debugged those multiple times. That like, hey, this was that, everything's changed, so on and so forth. So I will say, the nighttime I'm impressed with. It's dark, it's grungy, it's like not practically daytime all the time, which is kind of
work on the snow a little bit.
Yeah, the snow. I mean, personally, I don't care about the snow. I like the fog. The fog is nice and dense and thick. That's good. And then that sunset looked pretty good. So
now another thing they're doing on the test server is they are totally reworking the NPC movement system.
This is big.
That would be zombies and things like that. They're trying to make it so that they don't get stuck quite as often. So things can path an attack in water. So if something chases you into the water, they can attack you now. So keep that in mind. Try it out. Go check out the test server because there's enough changes in the test server right now. You can go check out the weather. You can go check out the new NPC movement system. See if you really notice a difference.
Yep, this is the Just Survive test server, and I believe that brings us up to date on that.
Which one's the one?
Yeah. Let's skip Russ, and we'll come back to that if we have time at the end.
Okay.
What about Unturned?
All right, and on Unturned, so we're at 3.17.14.0. One thing that they noticed is that Valve has confirmed they're working on fixing it for the next update, which is it says edit for econ ticket failure. So They said they don't know exactly when that's going to be fixed, but they have a temporary workaround so that it says to de-equip your skins and cosmetics. So there's an issue that's Steam related. So they're waiting for Steam to fix that problem. So that should be, as soon as Steam puts out a fix, should be corrected. And then they added water volumes to dev kit. So this is so that you can put standing water, you can put water different places. They added a selection tool option to the menu. They added, and this is a lot of dev kit stuff. They added tooltips to the dev kit, kill volumes to the dev kit. And then they added basis for game mode mods. So you can now change game mode with mods. So other than that, there's some improvements, tweaks, and fixes. But one thing to go into the water changes. This is now possible to have multiple elevations and connected bodies of water in a level using the new water volumes. So if you want to have maybe a lake that's up on a mountain, you can do that now, and it doesn't have to be one across the whole world, one flat level of water, because that's how they were doing it before. So they would have a water level, it would raise, and you just would lower the land if you wanted to put a lake out there. So now you can actually set where the water levels are for particular places. Gives you a lot more flexibility in making like a swimming pool, dams, in lakes, as I brought up before. So something worth checking out. That's a pretty big change, especially if you're a modder. There's a lot of people playing this game. Unturned is a very popular game, and it's free to play.
Yes, of course. That's it right there. Free to play game, super popular. You look at games like Team Fortress 2 and games like that, and they're crazy popular. Reached out to Nelson from Unturned. Hopefully, having him on the show in a couple of weeks. That's at least the plan. Brian the Force. This game I unfortunately had to uninstall this week because I need some hard drive space. I was going through. I had to uninstall the Forest. We played that original time. I know you played once after that with a group of people. For some reason, and well, I know what the reason is because we've made a very big point of it. But this game just doesn't stick.
It's not one. Well, being that the multiplayer is so difficult. You don't really think about it as a game that you... It's
like playing a Civ game.
You have to be coordinated. I mean, if they had a server that people could play and come back and play anytime they wanted to, that would be very different. But because they don't have that, it's a game that you get together, you play for a little bit, and then that's it. Maybe you coordinate another time to play. But the mechanics of the game are a lot of fun. If they could get that multiplayer fixed...
Oh, for sure. This game would explode.
It would be very different. Exactly. It would be a game that was kind of like my prediction that I made for Miscreated. I could say that, but I can't say that for the Forest.
Don't say it.
I'm not going to say it for the Forest yet because they haven't even mentioned the possibility of fixing that.
No.
They haven't even hinted to it.
I can see where they're going with it. It's more of a Left, even though Left 4 Dead has servers per se. I think that's more of the vibe you get from that. But
what's odd is this is on Unity. It is fully capable of doing this, and I don't know if it's just because they don't have people on their team that do this and they're just not making it more efficient. I don't know what it is that they're struggling with to make this multiplayer, because there are a lot of plenty of multiplayer games that are on Unity already, and it's equivalent. It's even more popular. This is one of the most, if not the most popular game engine. It's more popular than Unreal is.
Yeah, it's so very it's very disheartening to see that The Forest is such a great game, Brian. We played it right when it came out for a little while, and it was awesome. It looked great. The building mechanic was awesome. As you slowly build it slowly comes together. It just doesn't stick. And we know the reason, and I'm sure they know the reason too. They can't be realistically be like, oh man, why is nobody playing this?
So hear me out on this. Here's what I wonder. Here's what pops into my mind. Do you think that they're maybe trying to get closer to the story being finished, have more of the story in there? Because that's one thing they're really pushing, is trying to get the story in there before they touch the multiplayer. Because if it kind of gets popular too soon, that it won't be feature rich. It won't have all the features that they're wanting.
It's possible.
Maybe they're wanting to be that when they get the multiplayer servers on there, they have enough content that's where they really think they're going to pull the players in. That would be my guess of possibly the reason that they wouldn't be putting a focus on multiplayer at the moment. unless they just feel like this game is more of a story you play through and it's not focused on multiplayer.
Yeah, I think that I would, at this point in time, I would agree more with your second statement that this is a single player game.
They don't envision. Yeah, it's a single player that you can play with multiple people.
Exactly. This isn't a multiplayer game that you can play by yourself. This is a single player game that you can play co-op with somebody or two other people if you want. Yep. And that's fine. Here's the thing. That's perfectly fine. Maybe
we're just so used to multiplayer. It just makes it hard to play with our group.
Maybe we're the problem. Maybe our expectations for this game to be some crazy online game.
What, I can't play with 15 people at once?
Exactly. I think maybe Brian, you're the problem. And I'm the problem maybe with this. Who knows?
So some of the things that they fixed in this, they introduced a new repair hammer. So previously you would simply press E to repair damaged structures. Now you have to craft a hammer first, a repair hammer, and then you can repair the structures with that. It says arrows will now consistently stick into enemies and also should hit more accurately. So they're trying to improve the bow a little bit. In hard mode, we've increased the chance of distorted enemies coming out and also added a new system that will allow the distorted to travel in groups. Funny they don't call them zombies, or it's some other kind of a weird, and you have to play the story to kind of figure out who they are. For multiplayer, they said they fixed a ton of bugs, and this is something we ran into. We started building bases and the whole thing would crash out if you really did too much. So they said they're fixing a lot of bugs in there, and they've allowed all weapons to now be shared with the sharing tray, and improved animations on other players, and added a new leather jacket clothing variations. So they've been working on the cave, getting that the collision inside of there better. They've also added an option for save games. They've added an option to view other save games on the PC because they've had reports that save game files are missing. Hopefully this fixes that problem. So other than that, tweaks, bug fixes, and we'll have a full list if you want to go check that out. Other than that, there were two small ones. That was 0.53. They have a 0.53B. They have a 0.53C. These were mainly just little hot fixes that they did after the fact of, there was an issue with the repair hammer they just put in. So they fixed those 4 fixes on that one. And then after that, an issue with the climbing, they fixed that in the next one. So that is the most recent patch, 0.53C. It'll be interesting to see how close in the next patch. I'm assuming they're going to be pushing a little more in the story, because that's something they've talked about. It's very important to them. Hopefully we'll start to hear a little more about, what happened to the sun, what's going on in the world, why are these things the way they are. I know they're really starting to push on that.
Gotcha. Well, cool. Look forward to the updates that they're working on. We do also have a game we talk about every once in a while, Hurt World.
Yep.
Had an update. It's funny. It seems like this is maybe just a coincidence, but it seems like Unturned and Hurt World, the past couple updates, it's like similar things going on. They're working on a lot of improvements to help modders and map makers and more behind the scenes things that don't necessarily affect the player, that the player uses. And the first one,
but
here,
it allows so much more flexibility in the world, so they don't have to do everything themselves.
So what's been worked on here is a visualization tool for the editors, and this is kind of what they're showing here. It shows the data a little bit better. He goes into incredibly technical discussion on it, like stuff that Brian likes, stuff that nobody else really cares about. And also revamping the spawn system. I don't particularly remember how good or bad the spawn system was when we played this. I don't remember.
I didn't know what to compare it to.
Exactly.
I didn't know if they improved it. That was our first experience of even seeing how it is, so we don't know if there's supposed to be more or less items in the world than what we had. Yeah.
And so also a new gun that is being worked on this week. Actually, it's adding more parts to the MAC-10. This is some new parts.
Yeah, so they added a silencer to the pistol
and an attack flashlight.
And then adding some variations to one of their other guns.
Very extended magazine on this is the MAC-10 here this has got a red dot.
Those things shoot a ton of bullets per minute.
Yeah, yes, and very quick, and obviously that extended magazine makes sense. A red dot sight on that, and then here's this is the MAC-10 as well with a regular magazine and more of an ACOG scope, and this is imagine what would be a silencer. It's a very large barrel. and some different views on that. Also, the low riding jeans, as you can see there, they did a temporary skin on those. And
probably put more detail in a little bit later.
Yeah, and then this other one is cleaning up, and we've also been seeing this as well. They've been
eyebrows
cleaning up things. And this is the old versus the new. You can just see how the things are more pronounced.
Okay, he's slightly smiling now.
Yes.
Before he had a slight kind of a grimace on his face. Now he's got a slight smile and he has eyebrows that actually stick. They're not painted on his.
I don't even think that old character has eyebrows, to be honest with you. I think that's just the shadow of their eye.
That's probably true. So he must not have had any eyebrows. So now he has eyebrows.
Yes. Other than that, nothing crazy.
Talking about textures and things like that, mapping. This is a very technical one. So we'll have a link to it so you can go check that out because they talk about map spawn generation, recipes, and then other than that, it's incredibly technical stuff of how they're doing, things with their textures in the game and shaders. So we won't go into that here. But Hurt World, this is their update number 65. We'll have a link directly in the show notes. So if you go to infectionpodcast.com, you can go get a link to it, read the whole thing for yourself.
Yep. Now, fortunately, we were able to get through that stuff pretty quick. The game that we're playing this week, we announced at the beginning of the show for this week's Game of the Week, is going to be Rust. And with another episode of Infection, we have another dev blog. This is dev blog number 144. And, of course, with that comes a video from Shadowfrax. So we'll roll that, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Greetings, survivors and friends. Shadow here with another weekly roundup of what's new in the world of Rust, where in this episode we have growth, overgrowth, and animation-y stuff. But first, you've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel rusty? Well, do you, punk? Yep, the new Python revolver is in, and surprisingly, it's actually craftable. Bet you chaps never thought you were so good with your hands. It currently costs 3 pipes, 3 springs, and 10 HQM, but those of you who demand the utmost realism from your rusty arsenal will no doubt recoil in horror at the news that it uses normal 9mm pistol ammo. It comes with 3 attachment slots, accepting scopes, hollow sights, laser sights, and flashlights, but not silencers. Holds 6 shots, and although damage-wise is superior to both the revolver and semi-auto, it is slower to fire. The sounds are only placeholder at the moment before you say anything, and proper Meteor audio is incoming soon. Talking of the semi-auto, a recent meta where everyone and their cat has been running around with them as the cheap and cheerful long-range weapon of choice was targeted this week with a nerf to damage at a distance. Under 30 meters, it functions exactly as it did before, but anything over that and the damage will quickly fall off. Talking of nerfs, the crossbow had one to cost this week. It now uses 200 less wood and 1 less rope, but sorry to say, still requires a gear. According to Helk, this will stay the same until the component loot tables have been balanced, but that's not to say it won't change in future. Sticking with the subject of weaponry, you will notice a significant change to player aiming as of this update. This is all part of the new pass at animations as outlined in this week's dev blog, and from now on a player's upper body will not only always point in the direction they're looking, but you'll also be able to tell whether they're iron-sighted or shooting from the hip. These changes are only the tip of the iceberg lettuce though, and all sorts of interconnected wonderment's been taking place in Rust's guts and giblets lately, the upshot of which means that new animations should be simpler to add in the future, such as player gestures and other stuff. Farming just leveled up once again with the introduction of a new variable, genetics. From here on in, when you sow a seed, the resulting seedling, which will now be visible the instant you plant, will be assigned a random G number between 0 and 10,000. The higher this number, the better the genes, and although this will currently only influence growth speed, in future will be expanded to determine other factors such as water requirements, yield, disease resistance, and flavour. Okay, so not the last one, but another thing you'll notice is that now holding E whilst looking at a plant will allow you to take a cutting which can then be planted out to produce more plants of the same or maybe even better quality. The idea is that through selective breeding it should technically be possible to produce a race of genetically superior master plants and take over the world. Or maybe just get better crops. Surely I can just pick up wild stuff outside though, you say. What's the point of all of this? Well, not much at the moment, but the plan is to make homegrown food far superior, and further down the line we could even be self-medicating with it. So watch this space and I'll fill you in when I have it. Also, plants now grow gradually over time instead of those sudden, jarring size increases. Things are afoot over on the pre-release branch. It's now using Unity 5.6 Beta, which, if you don't know, includes the new nav mesh functionality and means that proper AI should be a distinct possibility in the not too distant future. The days of teleporting super bears could soon be over, true, but the goal is to start introducing a much needed boost to Rust's PvE element with more challenging NPCs that we can fight together. But that's another story for another time. As many of you have noticed recently, the new junk piles are sometimes a tad inconsiderate as to where they spawn, inside bases or even on top of players, for instance, and this has caused one or two rather inconvenient moments. Some more advanced checks have been added to them as of this update to make them think about players and constructions before they spawn, so hopefully this shouldn't cause too many more problems. If shadows have been giving you seizures lately due to flickering, something you can try out is to type Graphics Shadow Mode 2 into the console. Previously this was only available on Quality Mode 5, but should now work from 2 upwards, so give it a whirl and see if it helps you out. A few more optimizations were made this week to world models and rigid bodies, and it's the latter that seems to hold the most promise, with the possibility of some performance gains on higher pop servers, although you're probably going to leave me comments saying you're only getting about 3 frames per year now or something, aren't you? Over to works in process, and the new bear model's now looking less like a hedgehog and more like a very fluffy looking bear whose diet of human meat has given him a lovely luxuriant coat. Work's being done to wrap up texturing on some of the remaining grey box assets, such as these electrical boxes, to replace the placeholder items that have been used until now. In addition, the new truck models are replacing those ugly low-res vans wherever they occur, and the underground bunker rooms at the military tunnels should soon be getting textured. Lastly, natural overgrowth is being worked on to improve the look and feel of our rusty world. It's only a possibility for static environments at the moment, so don't expect to have moss and weeds growing on bases anytime soon. But when implemented, these should add a much more distressed and derelict aesthetic to the island. In addition, it's worth mentioning that the current grass will be getting an overhaul at some point too. What are your thoughts on this week's update? I'd love to know. So leave me a comment and a like, that'd be nice. Subscribe to the channel for updates and more. And come pay me a visit on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook and Steam. I shall catch you all soon, but in the meantime, keep calm and stay rusty. Or else. Cheerio!
Alright, thanks Shadowfrax for that update. Now, Brian, the farming is really important in Rust, and as he said, right now what you farm and what you pick up off the ground are the same, but ideally you'd be growing.
And the problem is you can find them freely enough in the world to where it's not really worth the time.
But the end goal of this to be, okay, well, you want to be able to grow a superior food. Whatever you're eating off the ground gains you.
I think even if they made those pumpkins are spread throughout. I remember running into them quite a bit. Have those be incredibly rare to where it's something you don't come across very often. So maybe you can pick up the seeds, and then maybe, I don't know, how would the homegrown ones be
superior?
Superior.
Well,
I mean,
for the pumpkins, not really, but for something else.
I would think
it does more.
Made it to where
gives you
more
you
get
food.
more out of them. They grow more. For the wild ones aren't as big, or don't give you as much.
Maybe the quality of the food. So if an ear of corn does plus 10 food, maybe a homegrown one does 20 or 15 or some update, and they're obviously going to work towards that. This is still the very, very, I remember when they first implemented this farming just not a couple months ago. So they're still revisioning that and getting that to a usable state. The new revolver,
I think that the grass thing, I think the grass thing is going to be important.
The
because
overgrowth?
If they can, they showed it what they're doing in kind of the pre-built areas, but I think if they go through and redo the grass around the whole map, that'll give it a much nicer look, because a lot of the growth that you see in just the random grass around the world hasn't really been touched since they released.
No.
It's all the same stuff. And just imagine if they went through and kind of gave that more of a realistic pass. Just you running around the world, everything you see would just look a little bit better. Yeah. I'm sure that they're testing that on this stuff. They said that they're considering replacing the main grass.
Yeah, definitely. And then we also had the new revolver, which shoots 9 mil, which I'm sure will just everybody, of course.
Did he say they fixed the 7 shots because it's a 6-shot
Oh,
revolver? I don't think he said anything about it, but for some reason it was shooting seven bullets.
It shot 7 last week. I would assume they fixed it because now this is actually.
Yeah, I don't know why they would leave that bug in there.
Yeah. So that should be that should be shooting the proper amount of bullets that it was previous to that. And of course, if like me, I've never really gotten into Rust, but I'll have my opportunity this Friday night.
Friday, yeah.
Yep, 9
So if you
p.m.
haven't
Eastern.
picked it up, go to humblebundle.com, pick up, for $4 and 50 cents or something like that. You can get yourself a copy, and we'll be playing it this Friday.
Yes, we will.
9 o'clock Eastern.
9 o'clock Eastern. We look forward to it, and we hope that you will join us. All right, Brian. Without further ado, do we have another giveaway going on?
Yeah. So let me go ahead and get this one started. So we'll be doing ! giveaway. Try to spell it right. We'll do this one for 50 points. We're gonna keep increasing this little by little.
Gotcha.
Because people should have been watching the whole show now. This one's gonna be Awesome Knots. Really fun game.
This is a good one. Yeah.
So if you Awesome Knots, if you haven't played it, it's kind of a arcadey MOBA is what it says, but it's a multiplayer platformer 2D indie game. Has mostly positive and recently very positive overall reviews. Is a lot of fun. So we'll be giving that probably here in about 5 minutes, copy of Awesome Knots. So go ahead and put ! giveaway to be entered into that.
And we will do that right after everybody's favorite segment of the show. It's not even a competition, Brian. I'm sorry. But everybody's favorite segment of the show. And that is current players. Here we go. Currently playing H1Z1. This is Just Survive and King of the Kill combined. Currently playing these. 29,207. The 24-hour peak for this. 45,886 with a 7-day peak of 58,665. Just Survive. Currently playing that. 3,946. 5,858 is your 24-hour peak. 7,665 is your 7-day peak. Decent numbers on King of the Kill. Not too shabby here, Brian. This is starting to look like some of these other games we talk about. Currently playing that. 25,261. 40,028 is your 24-hour peak. And 50,990 is your 7-day peak. Ark Survival Evolved. Currently playing that. 37,847. The 24-hour peak for this. 56,941. And the 7-day peak. 73,714. Rust. Strong numbers as always. Currently playing this, 29,035. The 24-hour peak for this, 46,522. And the 7-day peak, 63,858. These numbers aren't too off from King of the Kill. It's pretty surprising there. Still solid. Miscreated. We're currently playing that, 1,708. 24-hour peak for this, 2,614. And the 7-day peak, 2,876. Unturned, a free-to-play game that a lot of people are playing. Currently playing at 16,240. 24-hour peak for this, 25,052. And the 7-day peak, 33,279. And 7 Days to Die, currently playing that, 10,458. 24-hour peak for this, 12,671. And the 7-day, 18,635. And that brings us current with current players. And, of course, we're seeing these numbers dip a little bit as college in the United States is in full force and full swing, and students are back at school.
We figured they would kind of balance out a little bit.
Yep, and this is the first week of that fully in effect. And I saw it when I was going in and updating the new information. Ark, I mean, you look at Ark's current player count. The 24, the 7 days still high, but the 24-hour peak is. It's normally in the 40,000s when we're doing the show. So there's definitely some indication there of people. But it doesn't matter because there's still almost 40,000 people playing the game on a Tuesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern. So it's still crazy popular. Nevertheless.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go and jump into Tip of the Week. This is where I'll talk about either a specific game or maybe gaming in general. But this week we're going to be talking about Ark. And so this is Tip of the Week. All right, so I figure I'd go into a little bit more specialty topic with Arc, because maybe some people are looking at managing their own server, and without a management application, managing a server can be a pain, having to deal with updates and just all the different things that come along with it. So regardless of whether you're running a Linux or a Windows server, there's some really good tools that are out there that you're able to keep your client up to date, or your server client up to date, and allow you to maybe update mods and things like that. So this will manage the mods, start and stop the service when needed, and you can put it on a schedule to keep it up to date and restart the server after it's done. So the first one, if you're running a Windows server, is called Arc Server Manager. You can visit their website at arcservermanager.com and download the most recent version. We'll have a link in the show notes. Actually, we'll have a link directly to the download portion of it, because it goes to a forum there. And then if you're running a Linux server, there's a really good command line tool that I use called Arc Server Tools. They have a GitHub repository that you can download, get it installed on your server. And then once you're running it and it's installed, they have a nice command line you can run to keep itself updated. So you don't have to keep downloading it from the website and do all that manually. You just run a command, it'll update itself. You can put a schedule on it. It's called a cron job, to where you'll be able to, have it automatically update maybe once a night or however long. It will run a message into the chat saying the server is about to be updated in like 15 minutes. If that's what you said, the server will restart for the update. So it does a very good job to kind of have a hands-off managing of the Arc server. Haven't had any problems. Arc is fairly stable. They put fixes out pretty fast, and the management tools are very, very stable. I've never had any problems with them. So they allow you to enable, disable mods for the server, which can be a big pain to get running correctly. You can set in there to have multiple servers if you want to update them separately. Some really good ways to work with that. So we'll have a link into there. So if you're interested in running an Arc server, these are two ways to do it, whether it's Windows or Linux. If you're running a Mac, sorry, I can't help you. So that is tip of the week.
You're unhelpable.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. That's a useful tip, especially for, and of course, another option as well, not a server manager, but you can also download an Arc server and run it locally on your computer if you just want to play with a couple of friends. That's a possibility as well. You can run a local server.
Yep. And I mean, that's the thing, is you're going to be dealing with whatever your bandwidth is.
And your specs,
it'll take your resources. So if you find that doesn't work well, most people don't have Linux servers to play with.
Oh, really?
Most people
just don't have dedicated Linux servers sitting in data centers.
Servers sitting around that they can throw these things on. But if you do, that's something you can do for yourself. If you have an extra Windows PC and you want to have that kind of set to be an Arc server, that's a possibility. You just have to have a little bit of knowledge of doing port forwarding and things like that. So it is all possible.
Yes, definitely, without a doubt. Very useful tip, Brian. I think that's one of your best tips.
I figured I usually talk about the players, but what about the people that manage servers for the players? So
the very large amount of people that are managing servers listen to this show.
Yeah, I mean, most people don't, but this is stuff that I enjoy.
I enjoy it as well. It's cool. Open source stuff like this tends to work. All right.
So let's go ahead and roll for this raffle. So
Bat Shane Polar getting right in there, right at the end.
Barely. So Athos70 is the winner. Congratulations. I will send you. I don't have a nice place to put in here. If they don't type something in chat, like, it's not an easy way for me, so I have to go find them afterwards. But I'm taking note of their name.
Gotcha.
And then you will see it in your. I just didn't want to try to have to get all that going during the show. Gotcha. But I have your name, so both people that have won, I will put a link in there to your message, and it will be probably in the other folder. So that's what Twitch treats it as, is not a spam folder, but an other folder. Check it out. It will be from probably Infection Podcast or Boise Computer.
Yes, there we go. And we just did finalize some of our merchandise for PAX. That is rapidly... Brian, you're ready for a jaw-dropping moment, Brian? 44 days until PAX. When we announced this, it was over 100. We've hit our goal of $512. We've hit our goal of $500. Keeping the donations open, we're still, this doesn't even cover the cost of our hotel. So if you feel so inclined to do so, head on over to our website, infectionpodcast.com/PAX. And if you donate during the show, there'll be a little pop-up, and we'll start promoting that in the coming weeks as we move closer and closer to PAX. It'll be here before you know it. And
yes, it will.
And the cool thing is, we're, as part of reaching our goal, we're going to be recording interviews and producing content that we'll be releasing on YouTube right after PAX. So they will we'll be able to offer that now, thanks to our goal, and thanks to the viewers for donating and making that possible. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And if you're going to PAX, and you need tickets for PAX, contact Brian or I privately. Send us a tweet or something, and we'll give you some contact information. We'll have 3 sets of passes for sale. Friday,
and that's the Friday, Saturday.
Friday, Saturday. We'll have 3 of each. We got
the weekend pass. Does that?
No, count? We don't have the weekend pass. We just have Friday.
Okay,
Saturday.
So we got the 2 days.
Yep, we've got Friday and Saturday. We'd like to sell them together, but contact us, and we've got sets of tickets to sell, potentially to sell. So we'll give you all the details if you are interested in that. And of course, if you are tuning in late, you missed the interview. You're wondering, when is the interview with Jens Erik happening? That already happened, but have no fear. This show will be up on YouTube, like all of our shows are. A little bit later on, if you're watching this on Tuesday night, that'll be up on YouTube, the full interview. And if you're watching on YouTube and you didn't know this was happening live and you'd like to check out the show, we're live every Tuesday night on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Infection Podcast, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Tuesdays. We're here live, episode 106. It's been very interesting to
flying by.
To stay flying by. Brian, where can people find you online?
If you want to find me at Boise Computer on Twitter, or you're more than welcome to go check out my blog, Bite of Tech, especially if you're into Linux stuff, biteoftech.com. And also go to our website, it's infectionpodcast.com. Join our Steam group. If we don't say this enough, but if you just found this show, maybe you came to check out some of the stuff about Conan, I encourage you to follow our channel. So on Twitch, hit follow, and come check out the show again. We talk about survival games. Once Conan is released, we'll probably talk about it as every update that they do. And if you're looking for a good group of players to come and play whatever survival type of game, or even non-survival games with, come join our Discord. And if you're looking for maybe a group of players, maybe the group of players that you played with are kind of dying out, I would encourage you to go in there, say, hey, are you interested in this game? I'm sure you'll get some people playing. So it's a great community, and each and every day there's people in there playing games.
Yes, we've got a great group of people. Brian, thank you very much. And we're working on interviews for games games that are already out, games that are upcoming. And here's the thing we haven't talked about recently, Brian. There's a lot, and I'm not exaggerating, a lot of super early access games, greenlit games that are Kickstarter games that are popping up that are survival based. If you know of a game that looks promising, that let us know. Send us an email. It's contact@infectionpodcast.com, or tweet us at infectioncast. Let us know, because there's way too many of these games to cover. There's a couple new ones that I'm kind of trailing and following, waiting for some updates on. But if you know of a game, like for example, Helion was one that people were asking for weeks for us to cover, and we got around to that. So
Helion.
Same. Helium, Helion, whatever. Halo. What's the difference? Definitely get in touch with us, because we can't keep track of all of that stuff. And of course, Friday night we'll see you in Discord.
Rust.
For Rust. I can't imagine that's going to end well whatsoever.
It never ends well when we play Rust.
No,
I don't know what it is. Like every time.
With the harbors, hopefully we can make something happen.
We'll have one goal. Let's try to get to this one place.
Yeah, let's all try to get to the harbor.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Thank you, Brian. We'll see you next week. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig, and check out our website, infectionpodcast.com. Thank you for tuning in live if you did for Infection. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you next time.